The girl went out to go home tonight. She had just inserted the key into the lock when the door opened automatically. Her mother had said she had to work overtime tonight. So who was in the house? Suddenly her mouth was covered and she fainted. When she woke up, she found herself locked in a glass fish tank. All around her were strange paintings. She panicked and called for help, but no one answered. The girl who had been locked in the fish tank was named Lejla. 15 years later, she became a lecturer specializing in the psychology of child kidnapping. She told her students that kidnappers were not born monsters. It was very possible that they had experienced complex psychological trauma that led to personality distortion. After school, her adoptive father in the countryside called her to tell her the bad news that Anne's adoptive mother had unfortunately passed away last night. As soon as Lejla received the news, she immediately flew from America back to the small town in Sweden. When she got home, it was already dark. Her foster father was in his room making fishing line. He was so focused that he didn't hear her open the door. His foster father was a retired police chief. On the wall in the house, there were still documents investigating the Lejla kidnapping case. He didn't dare look. He quickly covered the photos with cardboard boxes. After the incident, Lejla's foster mother died in despair and pain. Her foster father always felt guilty because he couldn't catch the culprit, so he adopted Lejla and raised her. It seemed that the case that year was still a thorn in his heart. To ease the pain in his foster father's heart, Lejla went fishing with him by the river near their house. He said that the town was expanding the mine recently. They even planned to drain the river. The townspeople all opposed the expansion. When Lejla went to the bakery to buy groceries, she saw banners and signs calling for forest construction. When she got home, her foster father's younger brother, Thomas, who was now the police chief, also came to help with the funeral. Time passed quickly until afternoon. Many people came to pay their respects. Lejla also met her childhood best friend. Her friend's family was in charge of the entire project to expand the area this time. Her friend complained to Lejla that the townspeople were both short-sighted and uncivilized. Last time, they even threw eggs at her husband's car. Who knows what else those people will do in the future. Lejla couldn't stay with her friend for too long, so she had to come back tomorrow to rest. Her friend advised Lejla to come to her house to drink tea and talk before leaving. She also said that she would send her daughter to her mother's house so as not to disturb their private time. Lejla happily agreed. The next day, after Lejla said goodbye to her foster father, she drove to her friend's house. But it wasn't like usual. Lejla's friend didn't come to the door to greet her. Lejla slowly walked inside. Loud music was playing in the house. Obviously, her friend should be home. Lejla opened the bathroom door and was surprised to see her friend lying in a bathtub full of snow, with no signs of life. Lejla cried and told her foster father what had happened. Lejla's foster father immediately went to the scene with Mr. Thomas to investigate. Soon after, her friend's mother also arrived. Lejla suddenly felt that something was wrong. She looked at her friend's mother's car and asked Lucia what happened. What was going on? Lejla's friend was dead and her daughter was missing. The police immediately formed a search team and searched the surrounding jungle. Lejla and her friend's husband also joined the search. Unfortunately, when it got dark, there was no progress. Mr. Thomas made a discovery. He received the news and immediately went to the entrance of the mine. There, he discovered some traces left by Lejla's friend's daughter. He immediately rushed into the forest and arrested her husband. Lejla did not know what was going on. Lejla called her foster father and found out that at the entrance of the mine, she found the girl's clothes and shoes. This capture reminded Lejla of herself in the past. At that time, the woman who was kidnapped was the same age as her friend's daughter. Lejla did not remember clearly when she went back to sleep at home. Lejla was dreaming when someone covered her mouth. When she woke up, she realized it was just a nightmare. The strange thing was that the window that had been closed last night was somehow opened. She asked her foster father. He said he did not enter her room. Maybe the lock was broken. After Thomas interrogated the victim's husband, he discovered that the first thing he noticed was that he was acting very calm for someone who had just lost his wife. The second thing he noticed was that the police had found a divorce agreement in the house. The month-long conciliation period was about to end next week. There was reason to suspect that the victim's husband had killed his wife and then cornered his daughter because he didn't want to divide the assets after the divorce. Meanwhile, Lejla asked her foster father to take her to the mine as a former police officer. The police also gave him face and let Lejla go to the scene to check for clues. The girl's clothes and shoes were still intact. They were neatly folded and placed near the entrance. Lejla immediately recognized them as the clothes she wore to her mother's funeral. This was someone marking. Someone said, "I had complete control over this situation." Someone had chosen Alicia, had chosen her. The foster father and Lejla wanted to talk to Mr. Thomas about this, but he was busy investigating and did not answer the phone. So they went to the victim's mother to ask if the girl had ever been in contact with anyone suspicious. The victim's mother did not remember anything. anything, but the maid said that last fall her friend's ex-husband came to repair the roof. There was a construction worker who seemed to like the girl very much and approached her many times to talk. This person also recorded many videos of the girl. Mr. Thomas still refused to answer the phone, but the investigation could not stop. Then Lejla and her foster father went to the construction worker. He admitted that he had recorded many videos of the girl, but that was because he had a daughter the same age. The two lived far apart, so they could only talk via video. By chance, his daughter met Lejla's friend's daughter. The two children became close friends and often sent videos back and forth to talk. But in one video, Lejla discovered a suspicious detail. In that clip, the victim had just gotten out of a car that was not her husband's. From the description of the construction worker, Lejla quickly realized that her best friend was having an affair. The owner of the hidden car was her lover. Because Toms did not answer the phone, Lejla and her adoptive father went to the police station to meet him in person. At the same time, they provided the clues that were there. Hopefully, Toms would investigate who her friend's lover was and whether he had anything to do with the kidnapping murder. But Tomas said that the two people acting arbitrarily was against the rules. No matter how Lejla and her adoptive father tried to convince him, Tomas was still stubborn, thinking that the victim's husband was the #1 suspect. Lejla felt that this kidnapping had many similarities with the one she had experienced years ago, but Tomas thought the two cases were completely different because this time his friend was murdered. Moreover, the forensic report was also available. There were needle marks on the victim's neck, indicating that she had been drugged and murdered. In addition, there were signs of assault on her body before her death. The fact that her husband had concealed the divorce proved that he was lying, plus the evidence that she had a lover. It was very possible that this was the motive for the murder. Tomas had come to a conclusion, and Lejla and her adoptive father were not in a position to say anything more. The two of them sat down to rest at a cafe. While Lejla was buying takeout, she met an acquaintance, a member of the team searching for the victim's daughter. This person introduced himself as being very interested in kidnappings. He had followed Lejla's social media account and found her analysis of the psychology of kidnapping criminals very interesting. Therefore, when he saw her, he immediately recognized her. The two of them talked for a bit and then went their separate ways. By evening, Lejla was still haunted by her friend's death. Lejla couldn't think of where her daughter could have been taken. Lejla always felt that these incidents were related to the kidnapping she had experienced 15 years ago. Her foster father said that there would be a memorial service for the victim at the church tonight. Lejla then attended. When Lejla saw the photo of her friend placed in the middle of the church, a nearly forgotten memory suddenly came flooding back. 15 years ago, when the kidnappers left, she took the opportunity to escape from the wooden house where she was being held. She ran until she met a kind person who helped her and was safe. Lejla immediately returned to her foster father's house and reopened the file related to the kidnapping that year. She wanted to connect that case with the kidnapping of her best friend's daughter. In the video of the police interrogation that year, Lejla said she only remembered being locked in a transparent glass tank surrounded by darkness. There were also strange paintings in the tank. From the different strokes on the paintings, it could be guessed that there were 3 other people locked there before her. Lejla called the kidnapper Walter. He often came to watch her paint and listen to her talk about the painting. Just as Lejla was intently watching the video, Tomas came to her house and said he wanted to talk frankly. He confessed that the reason he did not use the clues Lejla provided was because the person who appeared in the video of the parking attendant dating the victim was him. He and she had been in a relationship for half a year. At that time, he heard that she intended to divorce, so he ended their relationship. He guaranteed that he had never harmed her or her daughter. Moreover, after she went missing, her phone also disappeared, so no one knew about their secret relationship. Therefore, Tomas came to find Lejla and her foster father at night. He hoped they would keep it a secret. At that moment, a loud siren sounded. It seemed that there was an emergency in the area near the mine. That same night, the victim's mother received an anonymous email with a video of her daughter attached from the kidnapper's perspective. The next morning, the foster father told Lejla that the alarm last night was caused by a wastewater leak from the mine that contaminated the water supply. Currently, the town's residents could not use the water. All water had to be supplied by the government. The police investigation discovered that the victim's husband's phone was located in a neighboring town at the time of the murder and kidnapping. Moreover, when the victim's daughter's video was sent last night, he was still in custody. Therefore, he had a perfect alibi and was eliminated as a suspect. But the person who sent the video used an encrypted server, so even if they had evidence, the police still couldn't find her. Tomas speculated that the police initially found her friend's daughter's clothes at the entrance of the mine. Then the video was sent when the alarm went off. So could it be that the people who opposed the mine expansion killed her friend and and kidnapped her daughter. Lesley told her adoptive father that this morning she dreamed of her biological mother, almost forgetting that it was her adoptive father who had told her about her biological mother's foolishness. After being released, the victim's husband returned to the house where they used to live. He carefully kept every trace of his wife. Even the fallen hair was treasured. He rearranged the furniture to make it seem as if nothing had happened. But in the end, he still couldn't deny the truth. He hugged his wife's clothes tightly, inhaling the remaining scent. By chance, he found a strange book under the pillow. On a page of the book, there was a sentence left by his wife. Only then did he realize that his wife had betrayed him. But before he could think much, he saw a group of masked men standing in front of the door. He wanted to see who they were, but before he could, he was beaten up. Before they left a warning to close the door and search. Otherwise, they would not be so lenient next time. The victim's husband called Lesley for help. She took him to the police station to report. The woman who received the call was a policewoman. She was the mother of the child that Lesley and her foster father were looking after. After asking around, Lesley learned that after the mine leak, the daycare center was closed, so she was forced to take her child with her to make it easier to work and take care of. As for her husband, Adder, she could not be relied on. About a week ago, Adder brought home a large sum of money. He said that from now on, the whole family could live comfortably. This morning, he heard that the mining company discovered that the leak was caused by deliberate sabotage. Adder was scared when he heard that. He left home early, saying that he had to meet a friend to resolve something. Since then, he has not answered the phone. The victim's husband handed the book back to Tomas and suggested that his wife's lover be thoroughly investigated. Everyone present knew the truth, but no one spoke out. Tomas also used the excuse of collecting evidence to retrieve the book with the sentimental line that he himself had written. The police began to investigate the attack on the victim's husband. If the attacker wanted to stop the mine expansion, then they could not ignore an extremist protester in the town, Jim, who lived in a small house in the woods and was also Adder's best friend. The police showed Jim a video recording of him loudly threatening to kill the victim's husband and calling for the protection of a clean environment. Jim did not hide his hatred for the victim's husband and admitted that Jim himself led people to beat him. However, the investigation showed that Jim had no connection with the murder and cornering. While Lesley's adoptive father was staying at the policewoman's house, Lesley and her went to the house to look for Adder. Sure enough, they found him hiding there. Under the policewoman's questioning, Adder finally confessed the truth. Lesley also immediately reported to Tomas that someone had paid Adder $35,000 to drill a hole in the water pipe in the mine. This was the cause of the leak. Adder and the other person only communicated via email. The police discovered that the email address sent to Adder was the same as the address sent to the video of her friend's daughter. It also means that the person who caused the wastewater leak in the mine and the kidnapper of the victim's daughter are the same person. After finishing everything, Lesley took the policewoman back home to pick up her daughter. At this time, the girl was sitting in Lesley's room drawing. Lesley closed the window and then went back to where the girl was to pick up painting. Lesley was shocked to find that the content of the painting was an image of the victims being swallowed in a glass tank. After the police received a report from the street, they immediately went to the scene to collect evidence. The painting was confirmed to be painted by the person who kidnapped Lesley 15 years ago. Lesley's foster father was worried that this person appeared because he wanted to kidnap Lesley again, so he immediately closed the window. Psychiatrist Clement intervened to treat the policewoman's daughter. He said that Walter, the kidnapper's nickname, liked the color red because on his arm there was a large area of red painting that looked like beautiful flowers. Whenever Lesley recalled the previous clues of her foster father, she no longer hid and removed all the coverings. She began to make a criminal profile for the person she called Walter. 15 years ago, Lesley, based on the paintings in the glass tank, had speculated that before her there had been at least 3 other victims. They were all of similar age and had long black hair like her. After her foster father joined the investigation, he discovered that there were indeed a number of girls in the town who had disappeared for unknown reasons. The kidnapping methods were all identical to Lesley's case. Assuming that Walter had also kidnapped the victim's daughter this time, it would prove that he had been in hiding for 15 years and now reappeared to commit crime. The only difference was that this time he had changed the way he committed the crime. Tends to show off to everyone. In the afternoon, Lesley met Tomas at the cafe and handed him the criminal record. She thought that Walter's criteria for choosing victims had long black hair, because 15 years ago, when he cut her hair, his actions were like he was on vacation, careful and serious. Moreover, Walter seemed to enjoy manipulating the police investigation process, from placing clothes and shoes at the entrance of the mine, causing a mine leak, sending a video of the victim's daughter to arbitrarily entering and exiting Lesley's room. All of these were clues that he intentionally left behind. behind, both hindering the investigation and demonstrating his abilities. Lejla believed that in addition to her and the 3 other victims, there was also a first victim before. Because these 4 kidnappings were arranged too perfectly, there were no witnesses, no physical evidence, could not be the first work of a murderer. Lejla stayed up all night looking up documents. She finally found information about first victim in an old case 20 years ago. After committing the crime, Walter threw the victim's body in the garbage and covered her face with plastic wrap. The next morning, Lejla said that from using plastic wrap to cover her face, cutting her hair, to locking her in a glass tank, all were methods that Walter used to awaken the victim's human nature, making them completely submissive. After turning off the phone, Lejla went to the supermarket in town and coincidentally met the rescue team members she had met before. The other side enthusiastically invited her to drink tea and chat. The two made an appointment to meet around 6 p.m. After that, Lejla went to the riverbank where her adoptive father often fished to relax. Hearing the sound of police sirens and the siren, she ran after him. Lejla knew that a little girl named Toi had just gone missing. Lejla's foster father immediately went to the police station to assist in the investigation after receiving the news. He asked the police to check if they had received any text messages. Sure enough, half an hour after the disappearance, a man calling himself Walter called and left a message. He forced Xiao to talk to the police. Lejla's foster father ordered the police to search the dams within a 50-kilometer radius. During the time the kidnapper made the call, a surveillance camera at a dam recorded a car that stopped for a short time. Although the license plate was not clearly visible, the police recognized that it was a very rare small car of the lower version. There was only one car in the entire town registered under the name of an 84-year-old woman. This old woman had been diagnosed with dementia last month and had been moved to a nursing home. However, the apartment in her name was still connected to the internet and the data usage was extremely high. Tomas immediately led people to arrest her. Meanwhile, Lejla went to the pub to meet a rescue team member. He said he had participated in more than one similar search and rescue operation. When Lejla asked why he was so determined, he said that when he was young, his sister was kidnapped because of his negligence. Since then, he has lived in fear and guilt, so he was determined to find the missing people to make amends. Lejla was touched by that story, and she also began to have feelings for this man. Without hesitation, she accepted the invitation to his house to continue drinking. The place where he lived was quite remote. Cars could not enter, so the two had to walk a distance through the forest to reach the wooden house in the forest. Lejla did not usually drink alcohol, but this time, she opened her heart. She drank a few glasses of strong alcohol in a row. Then the other person suddenly changed the subject. He asked her what she did 15 years ago when she was locked in the glass tank. Meanwhile, the police arrived at the old lady's apartment. After unlocking the door, they found that the suspect was not there. Lejla's mother found a lot of documents related to her in the living room. The police found an unlocked bedroom. Little I was locked inside. The suspect's information was registered on the police's internal system. This person was the old lady's grandson who had just been discharged from the mental hospital 4 weeks ago, and in his profile photo, he was clearly a member of the rescue team who was dating Lejla. His questions made Lejla suspicious. She was about to leave when she felt dizzy. It turned out that the wine had been drugged. Lejla tried to lift his sleeve and saw a red blood stain shaped like a flower. Could he be Walter? After checking Lejla's condition and seeing that her pupils were dilated and about to faint, he went into the warehouse to prepare ropes and other items. At that moment, Lejla tried her best to run deep into the forest, but Lejla accidentally slipped and fell down the slope. Fortunately, Lejla's adoptive father found the suspect's hiding place in time. That morning, the missing baby Toi was rescued safely, but the victim's daughter was still missing. After taking Lejla to the emergency hospital, the adoptive father asked the doctor to perform an intestinal lavage on her. Tomas's side organized a search of the rescue team's wooden house in the forest. Although he was not found, they discovered a sketchbook. The drawing was identical to the one the policewoman's daughter had held. When Lejla recovered and returned home, Tomas told her that the team member had a kind of obsessive obsession with child abductors. Lejla's case was especially interesting to him. Therefore, he went to her hometown, where the kidnapping had taken place 15 years ago, to carry out this kidnapping. Unexpectedly, he coincidentally met Lejla herself, so he decided decided to reenact the whole incident. That night, Leila had the same nightmare again. She dreamed that she had drawn many pictures while she was in prison. She also remembered the scene before she was arrested. She and her biological mother were standing in front of a fire. Leila remembered that at that time she turned around and saw someone watching her from afar. That person's face was very familiar. At this moment, the victim's husband called, interrupting Leila's dream, making her unable to remember who that face was. He asked Leila if she had heard anything from the rescue team about his daughter's whereabouts. In her daze, Leila said that the kidnapper was not the team member, but Walter. He hurriedly went to the police to report to Thomas what Leila had just said, but Thomas thought that Walter was the kidnapper from 15 years ago and had nothing to do with the current case, and the rescue team member was the main suspect. The victim's husband dragged Leila to the mine and asked her what evidence she had to prove that his daughter was kidnapped by Walter, but Leila had absolutely no memory of her saying those words. It was clearly just unconsciousness while sleepwalking. Before leaving, Leila apologized to the victim's husband. While the two were hugging, she suddenly saw something swaying on the opposite bridge. She went closer to check and found that it was a bloody sack. Leila boldly tore the sack open and was horrified to find that inside was the body of the rescue team member. Tomas immediately sent people to the scene. The coroner concluded that the victim died from a precise cut to the heart. The killer was very neat. There were no traces left at the scene, so the police did not know where to start the investigation. That night, Leila received an anonymous letter. Leila's foster father was very careful, wrapping his hand in plastic wrap before opening the letter. Inside fell a lock of hair that Leila immediately recognized as the lock of hair that kidnapper had cut off 15 years ago. It was also tied with a rubber band that had been attached to her. Leila immediately called Tomas to come to the house. Leila confirmed that Walter had returned. He was the one who kidnapped the victim's daughter. Leila analyzed that the rescue team member was hung upside down when he died. This treatment was usually applied to animals. It was clearly a form of punishment. It showed that Walter really knew that someone was imitating him, so he used cruel methods to warn him. The incident was very serious. Leila's foster father stayed at the police station to assist in the investigation. Leila was escorted home by the police. She listened to the recording of her mother's words over and over again, even though she had told the police about what had happened before the kidnapping 15 years ago. Her mother had taken Leila to a fire run in the north of the town. The kidnapping had taken place not long after. Leila relied on her memory and went to the place where the fire run had taken place. Fortunately, the manager still had the list from 15 years ago. From there, Leila confirmed that her mother had stayed in tent number 12 for 3 consecutive nights. Leila did not remember clearly what had happened that night, but she was surprised to see that Tomas's name was on the list. Why was he there? Was the familiar face in her dream Tomas? Leila was about to tell her foster father, but he said that Tomas had just gone to the bar to find the victim's husband and confessed that he had an affair with Leila's best friend. The two had a big argument. Finally, Leila's foster father had to intervene. Now he was on his way to take Tomas home. After turning off the phone, Leila found a photo album in her foster father's house and discovered a family photo. The mother of the 2 foster brothers looked very familiar. Leila cut out a corner of the photo and pasted it on the clue board. Leila was surprised to realize that the woman also had long black hair, a common feature of girls who had been kidnapped. That night, Leila waited for her foster father to return. She went to Tomas's house to ask, but he said that when he woke up, he couldn't find Leila's foster father. Leila then asked Tomas why he had come to the fire 15 years ago. Tomas explained that it was because his father wouldn't let him hold his mother's funeral. He didn't want to be home alone, so he went to the fire to relax. The phone rang, interrupting the conversation. While Tomas was on the phone, Leila secretly searched his room and found her friend's missing phone. Leila panicked and took the phone to her foster father's house. Leila was even more convinced that Tomas was involved in a series of kidnappings in the past, but her foster father still hadn't returned. She called, but no one answered. At that moment, Tomas also arrived and said he wanted to talk to Leila, but she had completely lost trust in him. When he was not paying attention, she opened the door and escaped. Tomas heard the noise and immediately chased Leila. Leila hid behind the wooden house, intending to call the police. It was snowing heavily that day. Leila's foster father went fishing by the river with a special fishing line, as usual. Leila gradually woke up from her coma. Leila was scared to find that she was locked in a glass tank again, just like 15 years ago. Next to her was her best friend's daughter who had gone missing. The two of them had been locked in a dark space for a long time. Walter had not appeared. They also did not know what his purpose was. Only then did Leila remember that she still had her friend's phone on her. Her friend's daughter knew the password to unlock it, but the phone's battery was running low. After unlocking it, Leila quickly texted her foster father for help, but before Leila could explain the situation, the phone automatically turned off. Just a moment later, Walter walked in and turned on the glass tank light. Leila guessed that Walter was Tomas. Since his mother's death, his mentality had been twisted. That's why he repeatedly kidnapped girls who looked like his mother. Leila thought he would take her friend's daughter away, but he didn't say anything and just quietly took off his mask. When that face appeared clearly before her eyes, Leila was struck by lightning, standing there, frozen. Walter was not Tomas, but the foster father who had raised her for the past 15 years. The foster father pulled her friend's daughter out of the aquarium. He intended to cut her hair to make a special fishing line. Leila suddenly remembered that 15 years ago, the last step after her foster father cut her hair was to strangle her to death. Fortunately, she was quick-witted and said she wanted to finish reading the book in the aquarium. But when her foster father went in to get the book, she left the basement. She locked the door tightly and did not dare to look back. Then she ran through the forest until she was rescued. Leila's foster father took the ritual of his cornering very seriously. He needed to keep the victim's hair first. Not long after coming back from the basement, Tomas returned. He said he wanted to get Leila's friend's phone back from Leila. Leila's foster father pretended to stay in Leila's room for a while. Tomas found a family photo with a torn corner near the clue wall. Leila's foster father then went down to the hot pot, gave the victim's phone to Tomas, and pretended that Leila had voluntarily surrendered it. Tomas explained that he took the phone at the scene because he didn't want anyone to find out about his relationship with the victim. Leila's foster father talked to him for a few sentences and then sent him off. Then Leila's foster father went back down to the basement. This time he was preparing to attack Leila's best friend's daughter. He had asked Leila if she still remembered the campfire reunion years ago. Leila finally remembered. On that night, 15 years ago, the person she saw when she turned around was her foster father. He had kept an eye on her for a long time. At first, he also intended to deal with Leila like the previous victims, but because Leila was smart enough to find an opportunity to escape, he developed unusual feelings for her. He adopted her. He thought that was enough. But when Leila returned to town, he discovered that his possessiveness had gotten out of control. He killed Leila's best friend and cornered her daughter. He also dealt with the team member who imitated him. But all that was still not enough. From the beginning to the end, he always wanted to keep Leila by his side, so he cornered her again. He intended to keep her in the glass tank forever. After saying that, he prepared to attack Leila's friend's daughter. Leila begged fervently, but could not change the situation. She could only use her head to hit the glass wall. Knowing that her foster father would not want to lose her, he would definitely let her go to prevent her from harming herself. In the meantime, Tomas was on his way out when he saw the torn family photo. Suddenly, he understood something. He returned to Leila's foster father's house to search and unexpectedly found a bag of cut hair in the storage room. The foster father angrily shouted at Leila to stop. The scream made Tomas follow the sound to the basement. Leila's foster father calmly asked him if he wanted to be a good policeman to arrest him or a good brother to help me. Not long after, the reinforcements called by Tomas arrived and surrounded the house and the suspicious wooden house in front. At this time, the wooden house door opened. Tomas led the victims out. Obviously, he chose to do the right thing as a policeman. Leila's foster father, after being treated for mental illness, was sent to prison. The last time Leila came to see him, she asked him directly where he had thrown the previous victims. Leila's foster father did not answer directly, but asked her in return if she still remembered the river where they used to go fishing. Leila immediately understood. She reported to the police to search that river. It was on that day that the bodies of the missing girls were brought to light. The movie ended here. Thank you everyone for watching. Goodbye and see you again.